So, if the rumors that have been going around are true, then Nintendo is about to reveal their design for a brand new, more powerful Switch console. Now, this idea isn't new. It's been floating around in Nintendo fan circles for basically years now. And the people that have been talking about it for a long time have taken to calling this possible system the Nintendo Switch Pro. Now, obviously, we don't know what Nintendo's actually going to call this new system until they reveal it, but that idea is very interesting. What exactly would a Nintendo Switch Pro look like? Let's talk about it. So when everybody talks about a Pro Switch, there's usually three main features that they talk about. Namely, a 1080p display on the Switch itself, 4K resolution on the TV when in docked mode, and a bigger, better battery to accommodate this brand new screen. And these are pretty reasonable expectations from a Pro system. That's why Sony made the PS4 Pro and Microsoft made the Xbox One X. Not the Series X, they are still very bad at naming things. But while these are very reasonable, Nintendo is Nintendo, and at the end of the day, Nintendo's going to Nintendo. And it doesn't usually involve just a simple graphical update or a power enhancement to the system. Now, you would be right to point out that Nintendo has actually done this before with the introduction of the new 3DS in 2015, or 2014 if you lived in Australia or Japan. So, maybe that can happen again here, right? Well, maybe, but probably not. You see, the Switch has already gotten one simple refresh like this. They just didn't change the branding on the box to denote a different model, they just straight up replaced the older version. It's not as extensive an upgrade as with the 3DS. The only things that were changed were the cheap screens that scratched when using the dock, as well as the battery that depleted in just 2 hours. But it was still a simple upgrade that Nintendo is not known for doing all that often, and I'm confident that Nintendo wouldn't be looking to replace this basic Switch model anytime soon. A newer, more powerful system would need to be different. It would need to set itself apart from the rest of the Switch lineup, kind of how the Nintendo Switch Lite did. So, what would a Pro Switch look like? Well, let me show you my idea. This is my design for the Nintendo Switch XL. That's right, it's not the Pro, it's the Nintendo Switch XL. Nintendo isn't Sony. It's never strayed into the realm of professional gaming hardware, and such a name as the Nintendo Switch Pro would put people's expectations on par with something like the PS4 Pro, something I don't think Nintendo really wants to do. Not only does calling this the XL follow a naming scheme Nintendo's used with its consoles for years now, but it also describes exactly what the system is all about without you having to read anything on the box. And that's a pretty good question. What should you expect from the Nintendo Switch XL? First, the Nintendo Switch is a good fit for everyone, gamer or not, and it's the easy purchase most people will make when they buy their Nintendo system. On the other hand, you have the Switch Lite, which is clearly designed with kids in mind given the smaller size, the cheaper parts, and the lack of TV connectivity. So it makes sense, then, that the only community left to cater to would be hardcore Nintendo fans, teens and young adults that have been with the company since they were young, and who likely view gaming as more of a serious hobby than just something you do with your free time. These are the kinds of people that likely don't require a console to fit into their pocket in order for it to be considered portable. They'll probably be fine as long as it fits into their book bag or briefcase or whatever they bring with them throughout the day. So, with that in mind, the Switch XL would be much larger than the base Switch model. We'd stretch its screen all the way out to around 8 inches long, which is actually not super big given that the realm of tablets usually starts around 8 inches. But this is compared to the Switch's base model having a 6.2-inch screen and the Switch Lite being around 5.5 inches. So it would be a pretty decently sized portable home console. I feel like 8 inches is just about right for something like this. If you've ever held an 8-inch tablet like the Galaxy Tab A in your hands, you'll know just how big that screen is while still being pretty light and fairly portable. So, now that we've decided on the size of the screen, the name of the game is pixel density. Yeah, that's right, we're gonna be talking tech specs, baby! Yeah! For those who don't know, pixel density is how tightly packed the pixels, or the little dots that make up a digital image like you're looking at right now on your screen, are. And a higher pixel density means that there are more pixels per inch, the unit you use to measure pixel density. And the higher the pixels per inch are, the more detailed the image can possibly be on that screen. I just did a lot of pointing at you, so hopefully you get it, because I'm pointing at you. You better get it, okay. Now, pixel density is not the same thing as resolution, though the two are linked. Resolution is the static amount of pixels on a screen, regardless of that screen's size, while pixel density is the amount of detail per inch that can be shown on said screen. So, for example, with 1080p, which is full HD and probably what resolution you're watching this video on if you have a good internet connection, is just over 2 million pixels. That's written 1920 pixels horizontally by 1080 pixels vertically. Now, a 1080p screen will always have this same number of pixels, whether you're on a 12-inch TV, a 50-inch TV, or an 80-inch TV. So, pixel density decides how detailed that image looks to you, and it really depends on where you're standing and how far away you are from the display. A good demonstration of the importance of pixel density is to go to a TV or computer monitor in your house and look at a picture or video from 5 to 10 feet away. At this distance, you probably won't notice anything too weird about the image. But go ahead and move in close. You can pretty clearly see the individual pixels that make up the image, ruining any effect of a cohesive picture from that distance. This means that a 6-inch 1080p display will actually appear far more detailed than a 60-inch 1080p display. It's also why 8K resolution isn't actually all that crazy depending on the size of your screen. So with this knowledge, what exactly should the Switch XL's pixel density, and thus its resolution, be? Well, 100 pixels per inch is about the resolution where I am personally able to begin to not notice individual pixels at a reasonable distance. And that's generally around the pixel density of most 24-inch computer monitors at 1080p resolution. 100 is a fairly low pixel density, and it's far lower than the base Switch's current 250 pixels per inch display. 300 pixels per inch is the most efficient pixel density, as it's the highest amount of detail that we can see from a reasonable distance, though we can still perceive subtle differences in detail all the way up to around 720 pixels per inch. Not many displays outside of small phone screens and Apple's next-level Retina displays exceed that 300 dpi threshold, and those screens tend to be extremely expensive, so anything above 300 is out. If you wanted to come as close as possible to 300 pixels per inch on the Switch XL's 8-inch display, then 1080p has pretty much got to be a requirement for that display. 720p, the resolution of the base Switch's screen, is about 180 pixels per inch on an 8-inch screen, which isn't that bad. But if the system is going to promise a higher quality experience for more experienced players, there's a very real possibility that people would think that the screen on the base Switch actually looks better due to the drop in pixel density that we discussed. And, they wouldn't be wrong, especially since the system is likely going to be more expensive than the base Switch, probably somewhere around $399. Well, we can't have that happening, can we? People would not be happy to get home with their more expensive Switch console and find out that the screen that they got actually looks worse than the one that's $100 cheaper. It's not a good look. The Switch XL's screen would have to be 1080p, though there is a small caveat to that. It likely wouldn't be running 1080p natively, just like the 4K docked resolution that we're about to go over. The 4K feature is a big one for the hardcore. Gosh, that sounds awful. Is there a better word I can call this? Die-hard gaming fans, and Nintendo is apparently set to deliver on this promise by partnering with Nvidia, according to an article published by Nintendo Life. Nvidia, a graphics company that hopefully you've heard of, uses something they've invented called DLSS AI upscaling to upscale the visuals on its own home console streaming thing, the Nvidia Shield. Basically, instead of processing a full 4K image natively on its hardware, which is very power consuming, it would take a natively lower resolution 1080p image, use Nvidia's deep learning technology on the hardware itself to enhance or upscale the image to an emulated 4K output. So it kind of estimates what the image would look like if it would be 4K. You do miss out on some quality, but the reason you want to do this is because it actually saves both on battery, on heat consumption, and on frame rate. So if you were playing Breath of the Wild 2, which I hope you will when that comes out because I know I will be, the image that is actually on file in the system is only 1080p, but the system is upscaling it to 4K to show on your nice, beautiful, shiny 4K TV. According to Nvidia, using this process actually allows for higher frame rates at these higher resolutions than the lower-end hardware would normally allow. Ideally, this would be 60 frames per second, and as a tech geek, I kind of have to hope for that, but it could just mean frame rates above 30 frames per second. We'll just have to wait and see. Obviously, this system would come at the cost of having an image that isn't actually quite as detailed as native 4K, but I think it's a pretty fair trade-off, especially since I prefer higher frame rates over resolution most times anyway. So, the Switch XL would run natively at 720p at 60 frames a second, or 1080p at 45 to 60 frames a second, upscaled in handheld mode. Or, if you're docked, it would be 1080p native at 60 frames a second, or 4K at 45 to 60 upscaled, and you could swap between these modes anytime you want in the settings of either the system or the game you're playing. Some other smaller benefits of having a system like this that does upscaling rather than native 4K or HD content means you have more room in there for possibly fans or bigger battery, or you don't need as big fans for a system that doesn't get as hot. There's a lot of benefits to this. I'd also fix a few of my smaller issues with the base Switch model with the XL. One of my big complaints about the original Switch is how cheap and low quality the dock is. It's plastic and flimsy and weighs less than the tablet itself, so it constantly falls over. I don't know if you have had this problem, but my Switch is on a carpet, and I have a cat that likes to run around at 2 a.m., so my Switch is on its side 90% of the time it's docked. The dock that would come bundled with the Switch XL would be beefier and have a weighted bottom as to avoid the system tipping over accidentally. It would be made of a higher quality plastic that doesn't feel like it was an afterthought. The hinge on the side of the dock would have more effort put into its design so it doesn't feel cheap and flimsy while also being easy to open. Again, I don't know if this is just a me problem, but I always feel like the door on the base Switch dock is gonna snap off in my hand. The same with the Switch's kickstand. I absolutely hate my Switch's kickstand. I'm an anxious guy, and I bite my nails, so it's a real pain trying to get this tiny bit of plastic to come loose when you got -2 centimeters of nail. I've torn the rubber on this thing too, using tweezers trying to get the kickstand open, and, once again, you can really feel just how cheap this hinge is. My Switch XL would actually take a page out of Microsoft's book. Much like how the hinge on the back of the Microsoft Surface runs the length of the tablet, so would the new hinge on the Switch XL. No longer would you need to fight with an annoying snapping system to get your Switch to stand up. You'd just pull where there's an indent at the bottom, and the hinge would smoothly glide into place and stop at whatever angle you wanted. I would die for that kickstand. I really fucking hate the Switch's current kickstand. I really do. Okay. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. The Joy-Cons. The Nintendo Switch XL would not come with Joy-Cons. In fact, Joy-Cons would not be able to physically attach to the Switch XL system. As Arlo expertly points out in this video, covering his ideas for a new Switch, the Joy-Cons would need to change size in tandem with a larger or smaller system, meaning that, if we wanted to keep the ability for Joy-Cons to physically attach to the system, Nintendo would have to create bigger Joy-Cons specifically for this new system, Joy-Con XLs. Now, this isn't completely out of the realm of possibility. These controllers could be marketed to people with bigger hands, the kind of people that might want a larger system. And not only could Nintendo charge even more for larger sets of Joy-Cons, but the amount of money they make off of Joy-Con sales would probably rise significantly. They definitely have an incentive to do it, but I personally think that convenience and ease of use outweighs any potential monetary gain that might occur. Firstly, you don't have to waste time and money designing new Joy-Cons or a new side rail for the system, saving more valuable space internally. Secondly, and more importantly, having to ensure you're buying the right size of controllers for your system could get very confusing and annoying very fast. Even though this is a system that's designed for teens and adults, I still think it's important for Nintendo to think about the parents shopping for their kids, especially the parents that don't know a lot about this stuff. Immediately, you'd get parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles accidentally buying the wrong sized controllers for their kids and loved ones without realizing, all because we had to keep the attaching Joy-Con gimmick at any cost. I think the much simpler solution is to cut out physical Joy-Con compatibility and pack in a Pro controller with the system instead. Sure, if you want to, you could still use Joy-Cons as separate controllers. Just because they can't physically attach to the system doesn't mean they shouldn't still work. But a Pro system, even if it's not called the Pro, deserves a Pro controller, and it's often an accessory these kinds of die-hard Nintendo fans purchase immediately with their system anyway. Though I suppose that's both a point for and against packing one in because, well, money. There's nothing stopping you from playing with the Pro controller when in handheld mode, and it adds extra value to the pack-in items, helping to justify a $3.99 price tag to people who don't really know a lot about all that resolution and pixel density stuff that we went over earlier. The obvious trade-off with this solution is the inability for you to play this system while you're walking or physically traveling somewhere. Are you on a break at work? Perfect! Are you on a flight, car trip, or train ride? No problem! Are you walking somewhere? Ooh, sorry. That's just not gonna work. Now, this trade-off isn't nothing. There are certainly instances where you might want to play your Switch while walking somewhere, and that's totally fine. But not everyone needs that, and this system is arguably geared more towards people who would be more likely to leave the console at home anyway, or play it in between class or work, so I don't think this compromise is too big a deal. It's still a portable system. Plus, it wouldn't be all that hard to spin this as a good thing, like Nintendo ensuring that no one will ever be distracted by the Switch while crossing the road or something like that. Now, to finish this bad boy off, oh gosh, what is it with me today? To put the finishing touches on my dream Nintendo system, I'd pack in a 128GB solid state drive, or at least put a 64GB one in. Come on, Nintendo. Front-facing speakers for better stereo and sound clarity, a dedicated button to pair controllers without going to the menu, and make the new screen mini LED like the rumors have all been saying. Because why not? So, that's my dream Switch system. I'm not gonna lie, part of making this video really was just me trying to get my ideas out there at the last minute before Nintendo possibly might reveal the actual design, so that way I could say, haha, I called it! just in case there is actually anything on here that makes it onto the original system. But what do you think of this system? Is this what you'd want out of a better Nintendo Switch? Or did I miss anything that you think should be in there? Or is this just totally different from anything you'd want, and you'd want something that's your own unique kind of thing? Let me know in the comments down below. I look forward to hearing what you have to say. While you're down there, don't forget to leave this video a like and give me a subscribe if you haven't already. Ring-a-ding that bell. I don't know if I'm gonna put a bell here in post. There's probably credits scrolling here and not a bell. But definitely do that. I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers this year. Maybe if we get to 5,000 sometime soon, I'll cut my hair, trim my beard. I mean, I probably won't, but we'll see. Maybe that'll encourage me. But something you can do if you really do enjoy this content is be sure to share this video and any other ones you like on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, anywhere people can see it, and click like, because that tells YouTube that this video is worth watching. Weirdly enough, they push videos that do better off of YouTube, so who knows? Just please share this video if you can. I'd really appreciate it. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I'd highly recommend you go ahead and click that card that just appeared right up there. It'll take you to a video I did discussing the downsides of Phasmophobia. It's definitely a fantastic game, don't get me wrong, but there's also some things it could improve on, so go ahead and check it out. Tell me what you think. And if you really like this channel, you can go ahead and support me over on Patreon. I know the past couple of videos I've talked about doing a YouTube membership, but I ran this poll right over here which stated that you guys actually didn't see much value at all in what YouTube was offering on this platform and would rather donate to Patreon if you decided to donate at all. So I've gone ahead and set one up. There's multiple reward tiers on there. You can go ahead and check them all out. I think it's pretty fun, and thank you to anybody who does donate. You might get your name in the credits over here next time, so definitely go check that out. I know things have already been really crazy this year, so I just want to extend a personal message of I hope you're safe, I hope you're being safe, I hope your loved ones are safe, and I hope that we can get through this crazy year with no more incidents, or as few incidents as possible, and things can start going uphill from here. So thank you so very much for watching this video. I love you, please stay safe, and I will see you next time. All right, bye. Oh yeah, and then click here or somewhere over in this general area to go watch my video on Phasmophobia. I really like it. Thank you!